Good morning to all of our Facebook Live followers as well. So today we have 6 new cases, and we are not too concerned at this stage, but we'll go through it and Dr Young will give further details, and it's going to depend on what Queenslanders do. So I'll come to that in a moment. So we've got 6 new community cases. 4 are linked to the aviation cluster, which is good news. One is a man in his 30s from the Brisbane area. One is a close contact of the case announced yesterday. One is a pilot who was flown into Townsville. Now, this person was fully vaccinated, but I'll come to Townsville in a moment. And a household contact of a previous case, which is a daughter. We also have a person in Camp Hill who had recent travel into New South Wales. Close contact of a New South Wales case, and Dr Young will go through that issue. And the final one is detected in hotel quarantine. It was a returning Queensland resident who was coming back from Melbourne but was infectious on the flight. So that, shows very clearly that you can still acquire this virus in other states and bring it back into Queensland. So we have 22 active cases. This is good news. We've had 14,216 tests in the past 24 hours. So well done, Queensland, but we want to see a lot more testing over the next 24 to 48 hours. In terms of vaccines, we had 22,225 vaccines administered by Queensland Health yesterday, and that now means we have 65.15% at least one dose and 46.17% people who are fully vaccinated. Second is to be wearing your mask, and thirdly is using your check-in app. So I'm asking people, and Queenslanders have done a great job, and they've done this before, and I know they'll step up to the challenge and do it again. So what does this mean? This now means that from 4 p.m. we're going to introduce some further restrictions. So this will apply for the next 2 weeks, and this is going back to our stage 2 measures. So from our roadmap, you can all look at the roadmap. We'll get that up on out to people. We'll be going from stage 3 down to stage 2 for the following areas. So this needs to be very clear to people as well. These new restrictions commencing from 4 p.m. today for 2 weeks will apply to Brisbane, Gold Coast, Moreton Bay, Logan, and Townsville and Palm Island, because we had that pilot that flew into Townsville. That means that the number of people allowed into your home will be 30, including visitors, residents and children. Weddings and funerals will go back to 100, 20 people dancing at weddings. Restaurants and cafes, the 2 weeks will return to the 1 person per 4 square metres. I think everyone realises that we've got to put these restrictions in place if we are to avoid a lockdown at this stage. Okay, so I want everyone please to take this very seriously and to please do the right thing. And I'm quite sure that we will be able to get through this like we did previously if we all do the right thing. So good news in that those 4 of those 6 cases were linked to that cluster. But of course, testing is absolutely crucial. So any symptoms out in the community, anyone in your family has any symptoms whatsoever, just wait till someone turns off their phone. Thank you, that's right. If anyone has any symptoms in your family whatsoever, it is absolutely crucial to go and get tested. Okay, so I will hand over to Dr Young to go into a bit more detail about those cases, and I know that everyone will do the right thing. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Premier. So yes, we have 6 new cases to announce today, 4 of them linked to our aviation cluster. And it looks like we think the event where all these people were exposed and got affected happened on the 20th of September. We've still got to do a bit more work to clarify that, but we believe that's when it occurred. So that we think people started being infectious in the community from the 21st. So now we have people who live in Townsville, Hamilton, Biggerra Waters at the Gold Coast, North Lakes and Eaton's Hill, who've been amongst those 8 people. 7 of them are currently in Queensland, 1 of them's currently in New South Wales. And as a result of those people being out infectious in the community from the 21st, we have multiple exposure venues across Brisbane, Moreton Bay, Gold Coast and Townsville. So it's very important if people have been in any of those LGAs since the 21st to please go online and check for all those exposure venues. There are quite a number of them. Then those are 4 cases, they're all clearly linked, and we haven't had general community spread from them. So all of those cases have been people who were either at that meeting or had close links to someone who was or a household contact. So that is very good news. Then we have another lives in Camp Hill who went down to Kyogle and came into contact with a known case down there, returned home to Camp Hill and has been infectious in the community from the 25th through to the 28th of September. I already have her whole genome sequence result back. I just got it before this press conference. She has Delta variant, not clustering with any other case in Queensland, which makes sense as we do believe she acquired that in Kyogle. Then we have another case who flew up on flight VA333 from Melbourne to Brisbane on the 27th of September, went into hotel quarantine. They're a Queensland resident who was returning home to Queensland. So they went into hotel quarantine and got tested there as per our protocol. And that also, I have her whole genome sequence back as well. She has Delta that is not clustering with any known case in Queensland, which is to be expected as we believe she's acquired that when she's been in Melbourne. So we will be able to look at her whole genome sequence against those sequences circulating in Melbourne. So those are our 6 new cases today. We still have that Spring Hill cluster. No further cases though, due to that truck driver who came up from Sydney and had been infectious in the community. And we also have that cluster in Gavin due to that truck driver who lives in Gavin but is currently now back in New South Wales. He regularly moves goods from the Gold Coast down to Sydney and back again. So he's currently in New South Wales. And it took us a while to get all of the absolute details of where he'd been when he was home in Queensland, but we finally got them on our website late yesterday, and thank you to everyone I know who's been looking out for those details and has been working through them. Thank you for that. So although we haven't seen any community cases expand out from any of these known clusters, there are so many of them now, which is a concern. So I think it's important that we do put some restrictions back in place, as I advised the Premier this morning. So thank you. I know they're annoying for people, but people are so good at following them. So we know homes are the highest risk, so that's why we're bringing back that maximum of 30 people in anyone's home. And we know gatherings like weddings and funerals, so that's why there's that limit of 100 there. Plus, we need people to return to being seated when they're eating and drinking, because it's when you get up and wander around that it's hard to know who you've been in contact with. So to be seated when you're in cafes and pubs, and also in those larger venues, we've capped them now at 75%, just to decrease the numbers of people coming into those larger venues. And it's critical that people wear their masks at their entire time when they're in those larger venues, whether they're cinemas or theatres or sporting events. Keep your mask on unless you're seated and eating or drinking. But the rest of the time, we know masks work. We know they're very effective. So that's been brought in for Townsville, because one of those pilots involved with the aviation cluster went up there back on the 20... went up, sorry, on... I'll just have to check that date, but he's 21st. Thank you, Premier. So he went up there on the 21st and has been infectious up there since then. So we need Townsville to come under these restrictions. So he's been staying in one of the hotels in the centre of Townsville, but